Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or 2 a.m. Go to bed already. This is an Eagle Eyes on Tech Rant, and I am Eagle Falcon. This is going to be... I've decided that I'm going to call it the rant now. 2 episodes in. It was actually at the end of the first one I decided to just call it the rant. This is where any sort of tech news with a blatant political bias has to be talked about. I try my very best, and I believe I succeeded to, I'd say, a 98% success rate of keeping politics of any form out of Eagle Eyes on Tech, which is still an opinion-based show. But it's lately been getting a little out of control. Now, this one is nowhere near as bad as the very first rant I did regarding 2 of CNET's articles, one of which was just blatantly not even news. It was blatantly political fake news that discredited itself. It wasn't in anything, and it shouldn't have even happened. So, let's get to this one. We knew this was coming. Facebook mounting efforts to limit the tide of fake news. So, now everyone is claiming, and I'm going to emphasize the word claiming, that Facebook is the source of all sorts of fake articles that convinced everyone to vote against the corrupt politician Hillary Clinton and instead vote for the... what's the right term? Frat boy behaved businessman Donald Trump. I'd say that's a pretty accurate statement of the 2 candidates. They were both incredibly flawed. There was no clear, better choice than the other, no matter how much you tried telling yourself there was. The facts simply aren't there. They were both terrible. But every single news outlet is going to skull-shatteringly big lengths to try and explain how the corrupt politician Hillary Clinton could have possibly lost. And the newest excuse, in case you haven't heard, is fake news. Now, I'm going to go ahead and read this article from the New York Times. Facebook mounts effort to limit tide of fake news. For weeks, Facebook has been questioned about its role in spreading fake news. Let me interject. Right off the bat, I have a problem with this article. The first line is trying to state that Facebook directly is helping the spread of fake news. When push comes to shove, all Facebook is a giant bulletin board that anyone's allowed to post wherever they want. The only difference between, say, a Facebook and a 4chan is that on Facebook there are more guys that walk by the bulletin board and pull down terrible things. Granted, that still happens on 4chan. But this first line is implying that Facebook is dastardly out there trying to spread falsehoods and lies. I'm not even through the first paragraph, which the first paragraph is 2 sentences. And I've got major problems with this. The article continues. Now the company has mounted its most concerted effort to combat the problem. Facebook said on Thursday that it had begun a series of experiments to limit misinformation on the site. The tests include making it easier for its 1.8 billion members to report fake news and creating partnership with outside fact-checking organizations to help indicate when articles are false. Alright, already. While tools should be available, you and I both know there are just going to be tons of trolls out there flagging things they don't like, just to go out of its way to have certain sites just marked as just toxic and dangerous. And even some of these trolls even being used to push a political agenda as well. And outside fact-checking organizations, please, do go on. Tell me more about these fact-checking organizations and how accurate they've been in the past, because I'll tell you what, it has been comical how a lot of these fact-checking organizations, quote-unquote, have gone through and have taken lines of speech that various politicians have said and said, oh no, he never said that. That's a lie. But let's continue. The company is also changing some advertising practices to stop purveyors of fake news from profiting from it. How? Most of these articles, it's just the first paragraph and the link. If a news organization was trying to profit from advertising dollars, they wouldn't post their whole article on Facebook, which would then put the ad revenue within the power of Facebook. They would instead just let the robot take the first paragraph, which in this case is only 2 sentences, and the headline, and maybe a picture somewhere in the article, in this case being, what appears to be the jankiest Samsung Galaxy S, I think a 2? Maybe a 3? It could be a 4, but it's definitely the wrong operating system on top of it because it's got the wrong buttons. I'm looking too deep into this picture. Let's move on. You get my point, though. If ad money was the goal, it'd just be a link and then it'll just be out of Facebook's hands. So what are they going to do? The article continues. Facebook, the social network, is in a tricky position with these tests. It has long regarded itself in a neutral place where people can freely post, read, and view content, and it has said it does not want to be an arbiter of truth. So if that were the case, why even do any of this? But as its reach and influence have grown, it has had to comfort questions about its moral obligations and ethical standards regarding what appears on the network. Its experiments on curtailing fake news shows that Facebook recognizes it as a deepening responsibility for what is on its site. But Facebook also must tread cautiously in making these changes because it does not want to... because it is wary of exposing itself to claims of censorship. I hate to break it to you, Facebook, but by definition, going through with these changes would, in fact, put you into the role of censorship. That sentence alone, I have a lot of problems with, because I'll get to the point. Basically, you can now, and I believe these changes are live now. You can flag a story, a post that someone makes, as being fake news. In addition, you've been able to flag it for other things as just being hate speech, offensive, nudity, and etc., etc. But now fake news has its own tag. On top of that, if you post a news article that from its fact-checking sources is deemed to be a false news outlet, it will give you a warning and then place a warning next to the story. That in itself, while not the purest definition of censorship, is a form of censorship. Let me take an example for a minute. One story that is going around a metric ton, is the other political story. The one about the Russians, quote, hacking the election. This is now considered to be fact because every single news organization on the planet, with a few exceptions, keeps reporting it with no evidence. However, when you want to start proving against it, it's incredibly easy. For starters, what is even being referred to when it says hacking the election? Changing the result? Because we still use paper ballots. At least in our state. Every state is different too. And even from every county within those states, it can vary as well. There is no centralized system for hacking. In fact, my state, Wisconsin, was one of the only states that was forced into a recount by the irrelevant Green Party candidate who had no chance of winning. She tried to also force Pennsylvania and Michigan to do a recount, but they looked at her and said, "Go home, you're drunk." Our state, we did it. And you know what? We showed no signs of hacking. All of our machines were in tip-top shape. The count was incredibly close to what it was on Election Day. President Obama himself has stated that it would be nearly impossible to do a widespread, quote, rigging of the election. Yet here we are, talking around like it's some sort of big thing. The Russians hacked the election. How? that doesn't even pass the first sniff of the sniff test. It's totally insane and totally bogus. And any time a government official this last week has been trying to get any sort of proof out of the intelligence department that is claiming that this is true, nothing. Yet the majority of the news outlets preach this like gospel. And I guarantee you post anything from these outlets, spreading around a blatantly, obviously fake story, it'll be considered true. But if you post an article stating any of the facts that I just stated, it's going to be considered a fake news story. So here's my advice to those who are listening to me. Don't get your news from Facebook. It's that simple. You could get news leads from Facebook. That's fine. But look at anything with a skeptical eye. Check the story. Then double check the story. See if it even passes the sniff test. You have a fact check that is saying that something absolutely insane is true? Check the fact checker. You would actually be surprised how much just going through a little bit of effort can churn up some very interesting results. I'll never forget, actually, one article that was posted, admittedly by a left-leaning site. I'll put it that way. Their bias is clearly left of center. It was talking about how a new bill being passed through my state Congress and Senate here was going to completely take away the ability for food stamps to be used for buying food. It even cited the bill. I looked up what the bill said. The bill forbade using 100% of the food stamps you get for a month on one kind of food. In fact, it was specifically over 80%. It was a bill clearly introduced for the sole purpose of fighting a lot of food stamp fraudsters that go ahead, spend all of their food stamp money on one particular item and then sell it off on the black market. That's what it was. There's not even any having to look into it. That's clearly what it was. But the site itself did not want to acknowledge any of that. They just wanted to post that it was a terrible thing that their political opponents were doing, when it was nothing of the sort. The bottom line is this. We live in a world today where no news outlet is neutral. None of them walk down the middle. Either walk down the right aisle or the left aisle. That's all there is to it. Finding out which aisle they walk down is the first first step to the rest of us trying to figure out what actually is the truth. That's an incredibly important step. That's going to conclude it for me here on this quick little rant. Thank you for listening. I hope you've learned something from this. Please do check out the rest of the podcast. And also, hopefully, I'll see you the next time I find some other inane thing to rant about. Take care, everyone. Rest well.